My front cover appeals to the readership in a variety of ways. The masthead of my magazine should appeal to my readership, as blue was cited as the preferred colour for my magazine and in its entirety. The font is edgy and reflects an indie magazine. The main image is appealing to both genders. The style indicates a popular music genre. The boys look approachable, amicable, and are easy to relate to for other teenagers. My questionnaire indicated that 1 or 2 images would be preferred for the front cover as opposed to a variety of images. I took this to mean that a simple front cover is desirable, and so my front cover avoids overcomplication. I found in my questionnaires that cover lines were preferred, and these help a prospective reader in the decision to buy the magazine or not. The double page spread being attractive to the audience. The whole left-hand side of the page is dedicated to images. Images of the boys in the style of Polaroids interest the reader and are consistent with the contents page. A drop cap to inform the reader of the background to the article and to the writer. Pull quotes attract the reader's attentions and are instantly appealing. Colloquial language allows the reader to feel at ease as the article feels friendly and conventional. For example, a quotation taken from one of the band members: "We just recorded one of our own songs one evening and posted a video on the net." The article ends on an upbeat and positive note. As Flash, we're confident for the future of these Irish teenagers. Another pull quote emphasises the humility and friendly nature of the band, and the readers will relate to them, as they say that watching the Splash Out tour in 2009, they didn't ever think that it could be them up there on stage. Various quotations embedded into the text, such as "This felt like the breakthrough the band needed. We finally had hoped we could go through our internet roots," attract the audience. Overall calming colour scheme of blue, white and grey, the reader becomes familiarised with the house style of the magazine and appreciates it. Many images, as opposed to one, appeal to the target audience that have indicated that images are appealing. Also avoids an overload of text that will lose the interest of the reader quickly. What have you learnt about technologies from the process of constructing this product? Prior to this project, my knowledge of Photoshop was next to none, and so throughout my preliminary task, I spent my time learning how to create backgrounds with gradients, how to draw basic shapes, use of fonts and positioning of these on the canvas, and adding and editing images. The skills that I was developing allowed me to create a front cover and contents page for my school magazine. Although these are basic, they provided me with a set of skills that I could develop onto my main outcomes. So these were my preliminary outcomes, and they are quite basic looking back on it now, but they did help me to learn and progress. After I completed my preliminary task, I began taking photos using a digital camera for my main task. For each of these, framing, composition, mise-en-scène, lighting and editing had to be considered. Learning to take good quality photos on a digital camera can be difficult, especially as there were time constraints in terms of how much time I had with my models. These photos denote 2 teenage boys in checkered shirts and jeans. However, the connotative meaning of this is that they are an indie band, a laid-back magazine and a relaxed new act, and a specific genre of music is denoted especially through the use of guitars. Photoshop skills I learnt. I used Photoshop to edit some of my photos. This mainly consisted of cropping, changing photos to grayscale and removing the background. I cropped this image and made it black and white so it looked more professional on my double page spread. The background here was dull and boring, therefore I used the background eraser tool to remove it. I had to alter my tolerance, however, as I got closer to the parts of my model's hair and clothes that I wanted to keep in the photo. I also used the blur tool around the edges slightly to remove any imperfections in the image after I cut out the background. I changed the background to grey to follow on with the house style of Splash magazine. Using layers confused me at first, but I learned how to navigate between the layers and eventually found this easeful way to isolate the action of the image I was working on. Other tools I used were Paint Bucket tool, Magic Wand tool, Red Eye tool, Spot Healing brush, the Text Box tool, Custom Shape tool and the Magnifying tool. I learned how to use grid lines when completing my tasks. These helped to align my work and ensure everything was straight and accurate. Fonts. For my fonts, I used the website 1001 Fonts, an internet site, and and copied them into a Windows folder for fonts. I was then able to open these in Photoshop and use them throughout my magazine. This font is called IF, and is the font I decided to use from the masthead title on the contents page and subheadings. These other fonts were downloaded from 1001 Fonts also, and are used in both the front cover, contents page and double page spread. This splash mark used throughout my magazine is also downloaded from Google and pasted into a Windows folder for brushes. This adds to the splash theme of the magazine and is aesthetically pleasing. Microsoft Publisher. In order to create preliminary flat plans, I used Microsoft Publisher, as this was the most obvious method to use before I became accomplished in Photoshop. This is the flat plan of my music magazine front cover. I created this on Publisher before completing another flat plan on Photoshop. These are the contents page flat plans I created on Publisher. These reflect the two colour schemes I was originally considering when planning my magazine. Becoming more accomplished at Photoshop, I decided to create the flat plan for my double page spread on Photoshop instead of Publisher. Microsoft Excel. In order to produce graphs of results for the questionnaires I distributed, I used Microsoft Excel. This allowed me to produce visual results that were meaningful and results that could be compared easily. These are two graphs I created. This graph was created in conjunction with the results I received on the most popular articles that could be placed in a music magazine. The graph clearly illustrates that the new or unsigned acts and the music award articles would be most popular. This graph illustrates the results found when I asked people what images they would like to see most in a music magazine. The clear favourite was both famous and new or unsigned acts. However, as all of my images had to be original, I simply included the names of famous artists and filled my magazine with original images. I inserted data like this into various cells in Excel and was able to make these into graphs to illustrate the results I had obtained. Blogging. Initially I was confused and daunted at the idea of using a blog site. However, I quickly began to understand PB Works and soon learned how to post my work on quickly and effectively. I learned how to create new pages and to post links from the main site to the various pages I had made. I updated my sidebar with links to all aspects of my work and was able to change the font, colour and size of the text. On my front page, I have been keeping a blog up to date on the various work I have completed and on which dates. This blog provides links to individual pages. So this included the dates at the top and then a summary of what I had done and then a link to the page itself. These links then follow onto full pages of work that I have completed, for instance this reader profile page. Through my blog, I was also able to upload all of the images I had taken associated with my project and get reader opinions. For instance, Lisa said in February, I like photo 1 and photo 8 as possible for cover images, and I think that you should use photo 3 and 5 and 7 in your contents page. On my blog, I can also keep up to date with my classmates by viewing my classmates' blog sites and seeing their work. I was also able to keep a sidebar which includes links to all of my work, and this was separated into preliminary task, work, planning and research and construction. Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learnt in the progression from it to your full product? As I have addressed already, I have learnt much technically in the progression from the preliminary to main tasks. So my preliminary task, as I had no previous experience with Photoshop, I learned how to create text boxes and fill these with colour and text. I learned how to insert, crop and edit the colour of images. I learned how to rotate this text by clicking Edit, Transform and Rotate. Due to learning this previously, I was then able to rotate my Polaroid images on my contents page and my double page spread of my main task. Following on from this, I then learned how to download fonts and paintbrushes from the internet, which contributed hugely to the look of my front cover, contents page and double page spread. I learned how to create a more aesthetically pleasing layout by just adding one image on the front cover and two in the contents page. This has avoided overcrowding, something that is present in my preliminary task. In my contents page, I kept all of the information on articles to one side of the page as opposed to across the whole of the page as in my preliminary task. During my preliminary task, I did not know how to remove the background from photos. However, during the main task, I watched Photoshop tutorials on the internet and learned this skill to use in my photo on the contents page. This adds to my contents page, as had the image been left how it was originally, the magazine would have looked less professional.